Welcome back to Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. Last time, we did Dane's loyalty mission and helped out the twins and did basically everything we can do for them. We haven't completely taken over downtown yet, but that's for a different day. For now, though, we've got a couple new things on the docket. Of course, we have to make Satan mad, but that's just gonna be every video. We also have 2 new characters to meet and 2 new powers to obtain. The first character we'll be meeting is Blackbeard. You know, the pirate? Yeah, that guy. We're meeting him.
Know your limits. It was the best piece of advice my father gave me, and I ignored it because I was a fucking idiot. I was the director of special projects for Ultor, and I pissed it all away because my ambition got the better of me. The reality is that I'm a kingmaker, not a king. I'm not going to make that same mistake twice.
Yeah, I mostly didn't make any mistakes. It's just, you know, I can't be the guy in front. I got a little too greedy. Now I'll just be evil in the background instead. Yeah, so I do really like this game's take on Dane Vogel. Like I said before, I feel like despite being years after Saints Row 2, they actually did him pretty well. He's definitely been sucking up to the Saints a little bit more this time around, but with good reason. He did learn from being shot in the face until dead. He probably died before he hit the ground, but, you know. If the bullet didn't kill him, then I guess that would've. Or the heart attack from falling. Honestly, people kind of underestimate that, but it's usually gonna be the heart attack that kills you if you fall to your death. Anyway though, right, so. Dane is pretty great. I like this rendition of him. And speaking of Dane, we've got some voice actors to go over. So since I've already brought him up, Dane Vogel is voiced by Jay Moore, who, yes, is the very same person who voiced him in Saints Row 2, so they actually did manage to get him back. As for other voice actors, I guess since we're not going to be talking to them as much, they will have some more dialogue, but it's mostly side stuff. But we've got Kiki DeWinter, voiced by Ashley Birch, and Viola DeWinter, voiced by Sasha Grey. And then, of course, we did end on a cutscene, which featured Satan and his daughter. So Satan is voiced by Travis Willingham, and Jezebel is voiced by Kate Reinders. But of course, we've got someone else to meet. Because let me tell ya, I want a new power. And if we want to find it, we gotta touch this wheel.
Abandoned ship! We've been boarded! Get these damn things off my ship!
Hey, Matt Mercer, can you voice a pirate? Cool, thanks. Alright, so we've got a new enemy type, imps. They are very annoying because they're tiny and hard to hit. Also, they do a Sonic the Hedgehog spin dash, because why not? And if they want to, they can also start climbing on top of you, at which point you'll have to mash the Y button or whatever your equivalent is, in order to remove them. They don't exactly do the most damage, but again, they usually come in very large groups, and are just pests. They're not so bad here since they're all we have to deal with, but of course they can be mixed in with other enemies.
I got a bit of treasure in that chest over there. The weapon you find inside may help with our little imp problem.
It may indeed. Right, so this isn't my favorite melee weapon.
That is a freakishly large hammer.
But it is a big hammer. More specifically, it is the God's Hammer. This is really good because not only can you just swipe with it, you know, just normal melee style, you can also charge up a slam attack too. Hopefully it doesn't do friendly fire. Sorry, I thought you had something on you there, Blackbeard. Alright, and you quit doing that.
I summoned these imps to serve as my crew. I forgot what a handful they could be. Once aboard, they wouldn't listen to their captain. They ran amok in the bowels of the ship.
And now they're dead, so I think they learned their lesson. Oh, well, The ones that are dead learned their lesson. These guys apparently can't watch and learn, so, we'll kill them too.
Good God, they're swarming me!
I'll get to you in a sec. Oh, well, they're also swarming me, but I can kind of just explode them with my mind, so... I don't know what your problem is, Blackbeard.
Isn't a boat. It's the Queen Anne's Revenge!
Isn't that just a fancy name for a boat?
Names are important, my dear. You can't build a legacy without a name.
Zinyak's destruction of Earth had a profound impact on the afterlife. To heaven, it was a logistical nightmare. St. Peter's meticulous nature drove purgatory wait times to unbearable levels. Meanwhile, in hell, where souls in pain were used as currency, it created a new era of prosperity for the wickedly enterprising. This economic boon resulted in the coffers of hell to be overflowing, which in turn piqued the interest of the most notorious man that sailed the seven seas. Long had Blackbeard been a thorn in Satan's side, robbing tax collectors on a semi-regular basis. But the promise of an immeasurable fortune drove him to be even bolder. An arrangement was reached. Blackbeard would provide information on strategic targets in exchange for a share of the profit. Johnny, who was interested in murder, not money, happily agreed.
I grant ye the ability to summon my crew whenever they're needed.
Is that a good idea? They weren't very obedient. So anyway, here's Summons. This is our new up directional pad ability. Which, if you'll remember Saints Row 4, the old up directional pad was telekinesis, so... yeah, for the most part, this game does just have variants of the powers from 4. Telekinesis is the only one that just got straight up replaced. And frankly, I think it's for the better.
Alright, matey. It's time for your lesson. Let's summon me favorite scurvy-riddled hellion, the Imp. Why don't you start off by summoning an imp to take out those enemies? There you go, matey. Now take down the other demon. Those ankle biters are vicious. Now let's practice your aim. Take down the demons on the islands.
Summoning isn't exactly my favorite ability in this game either, but let me tell you, I do like it so much more than I like telekinesis.
Few things are as rewarding as pressing someone into service, am I right? Now get going. There's a whole wide world waiting to be plundered.
I mean, I guess if you're Kinsey, yeah. Alright, so... we're back at Altor, of course, but... let's get on to Blackbeard's loyalty missions.
A Damsel's Orientation Guide, Chapter 38. Imps. Little bundles of pure sin. These adorable mischief makers serve as perfect pets or slave labor.
The Barrens is the perfect staging grounds for all manner of operations against Satan. But first, we have to secure it. I bow to no crown. Not even when Satan himself wears it.
And believe me, he probably enjoys wearing a crown. Alright, so what's our mission? Why, it's the new mission type. So, each region has its own treasure chest.
I got word from Blackbeard that every island has a treasure chest hidden on
I already said that,
What's in the
Dane.
chest? I don't know. I'm not a fucking pirate. What I do know is that if you want to get that thing open, you have to find 3 corresponding glyphs. Look on the bright side. Nothing's trying to kill you.
Unless you hit anything on your way to the glyphs, but, you know, you don't have to. So yes, each region has its own treasure hunt. Find the 3 glyphs, you can open the treasure.
I should find them all in no time.
What happens when you find all of the treasures in general? We'll save that for later, of
The
course.
Bedard algorithm. How pedestrian.
The Barrens were the only place desolate enough to allow me to build the Queen Anne's Revenge in peace. Before I discovered the Barrens, all of my efforts would be overrun by people looking to cause me harm. But here, the energy it would require to ruin my day wasn't worth the wasteland they would have to traverse.
Oh, lightning.
Being a pirate with no water to sail on is like being a pirate with no water to sail on. I tried to build a craft that could weather the lava, but each time the craft and crew would erupt in flames. That's why today, the Queen Anne's Revenge sails on thermal currents and arcane magic. Yes, the arcane magic is doing the heavy lifting, but I'd like to believe the sails are still doing something. The Barrens are as good a home as any pirate could ask for. It's remote, devoid of people, and perilous to get to. Here, I can live as a pirate king for the rest of my eternal days.
A Damned Soul's Orientation Guide, Chapter 12, The Barrens. Once a lovely location for bacchanals and ritualistic murders, the heavenly host laid waste to the Barrens in the last war between heaven and hell. I have forbidden rebuilding the Barrens, so it serves as a reminder for what we lost. Only after I lay siege to heaven will I allow it to return to its former glory.
Robbing galleons and avoiding the crown was a thrill, but it's nothing compared to robbing the denizens of hell. Life without adventure is no life I'm fit to live. Here, the stakes are beyond simple life and death. Hell is where I'm meant to be.
And yes, I did forget that the first glyph is just right here somehow.
Just see what Blackbeard was hiding.
I don't know how I missed that. That's a little embarrassing. Either way, though, we did explore a lot of the Barrens, actually. The Barrens are easily the smallest region in the entire game, and honestly, you can clear these in no time if you're not careful.
Didn't have anything better to do.
Like, we'll be mostly done with this place once we're done with Blackbeard's loyalty mission, and usually there's like a decent amount of content in each region, even if you do finish the loyalty mission, so yeah, the Barrens are, as you might expect from a place called the Barrens, fairly empty, and there's not too much to really find here. But of course, it is also a great place to stretch your wings if you want to. It is pretty fun to fly through, there aren't too many obstacles. But enough about that. So, while we're in the Blackbeard section, I feel like, maybe for some people at least, some of the character selections in this game could veer into also random. Like, we've got Dane, we've got the twins, but then for characters who aren't saints, we have characters like Blackbeard, or, as we'll see in a little bit, Shakespeare. And I don't know, maybe that to some people seems a little weird, but I feel like they do a pretty good job of justifying their character picks. From both story and exploration, we've already discovered that, this game does actually have a pretty good narrative, I'd say. At least, I don't know if it does the most with it in its actual storytelling, but in terms of background, I feel like they actually found some really interesting points in the entire Earth exploding. They find some pretty good implications for the afterlife by all of this happening, so yeah, Saints Row 4 had further consequences than just everybody on Earth dying. This is also a world where heaven and hell exist, and they exist as we kind of see them in various media. Heaven's really difficult to get into, which means that everybody is just standing in one big line, waiting to get into the pearly gates. Meanwhile, everything is just kind of going hell's direction, cause they just get plopped down and turned into husks. So like, hell is at an all-time high. Things are going great for everybody. And yeah, I feel like, despite how kind of minimal this side game is at times, at the very least, they do touch upon very cool aspects of just what would happen if the afterlife were real and the Earth exploded. But then you also have the characters chosen as your new allies here. Again, it's a little weird that they choose some Saint character originals, and then they also just have kind of historical figures. But I feel like all the characters we're gonna meet on this journey do actually fit pretty well with the Saints, especially since we're not really dealing with the gang as a whole, so much as we are just two members of it who are, on a quick rescue mission. This isn't gonna take too long. We gotta find the boss, we gotta rescue the boss. But they're also figures who I feel like they justify well enough why they are in the positions they're in Hell. Like, Blackbeard is here because Hell got rich, and so pirates happen.
A Damned Soul's Orientation Guide, Chapter 17, The Battlegrounds. This graveyard is where dead of the previous war on Heaven were buried. Here it is rumored that demons and angels alike haunt this place to this very day.
I don't know who placed those glyphs that lead to treasure, nor do I care. The chase is all that matters. Some may question why I would bother revealing the location of missing treasure when I could find it myself. But the answer is simple. Competition. With no one else looking for the treasure, there is no incentive for me to find it over robbing other demons. Without another race to find the prize, those chests just sit there dormant. And treasure is meant to be found.
And I also feel like part of it is the characters we meet are, real people who are kind of mythologized in some way, shape, or form.
Prepare yourself, Lord. Now, face Louvard.
Blackbeard, real pirates, very exaggerated in stories, but at the end of the day, if you're gonna think of a pirate, you're typically gonna think of Blackbeard. He's kind of the guy. He's definitely a legendary figure. Again, we're gonna be getting to Shakespeare soon. He's also a person who I feel is more grounded than the other people we're gonna meet in this game. Because, he was a playwright, and again, I feel like people kind of make him out to be a little more larger than life. He was definitely popular, of course. His works have endured whether or not high schoolers care for them. They are still works that we think about and utilize to this day. So, yeah, he's very important. I still think he's more down-to-earth than, say, Vladimir Drakul III, who's gonna be our fourth power guy, who, the concept of vampires is kind of now linked to him permanently, and there's an entire series from Konami about a bunch of people just killing him every 100 years or so. So yeah, I would say he's definitely a little more unreal than Shakespeare is. He's got a little more going for him in myth. So anyway, as we wrap up with Blackbeard's loyalty mission, I'd like to mention the fact that I had to save right before meeting Blackbeard and go to a different file to get this.
Well done, matey! Now to fix the damage those blasted imps did to my ship.
Cause yeah, Blackbeard just
I need to get those
didn't
imps in
actually
line.
load in when I finished the mission, so yeah, that was fun. She lied. So yeah, we'll wrap up this section real quick by going through the new powers we get. And of course, we've got a few more audio logs.
A Damned Soul's Orientation Guide, Chapter 14. The Ultor Corporation. Dane Vogel is an example for what the best of you can become. A businessman who serves as my thrall. This mega-corporation exists at my leisure, and assuming it continues to serve my interests, I will allow it to persist.
Yeah, I haven't really talked much about the Damned Souls Orientation Guide, but I do like these as far as little snippets of Satan go. We only really get to see Satan in cutscenes, so it's kind of nice that we get to see kind of his setup in hell, and kind of what he's like overall. Because otherwise, we only ever really see him when we're ticking him off, which, hey, speaking of which, this is supposed to be the Shakespeare episode, but almost immediately, I filled up the Satan meter. So guess what? It's cutscene time. And this time we're not actually going to be saving this for the end of the episode. Yeah, we're gonna be keeping it here.
You might want to swing by the Ultor building. There's someone here you need to meet.
That doesn't sound ominous.
Emboldened by the power of song, Jezebel set out to find the one man that could save her from her impending nuptials. Fortunately for her, Johnny's trail of destruction wasn't too hard to follow.
One night with any lover, but you have to punch a panda. Do you do it?
Ooh, good question.
Mr. Gat?
Who are you?
Well, I'm
We're not doing that again.
Oh, okay. I'm Jezebel.
Good to know.
What are you doing?
Threatening you. You're not marrying the president.
I don't want to marry the president.
Wow, that was easier than I thought.
My dad's making me do it. What now?
Now I'm holding you hostage.
You don't need to do this.
Yeah, that's what hostages always say.
No, like, you really don't need to do this. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, but I already have the gun drawn, so,
Are you kidding me?
maybe. Not sure yet, I'm kinda winging it.
Can you wing it without the gun?
It's a comfort thing.
Not for me.
What do you want?
For you to put the gun down.
Get used to disappointment.
You sound like my father.
What?
He's always telling me that life is about misery, not happiness. That dreams only exist to make people forget about their own mediocrity.
Man, that's depressing.
Being the devil's daughter sucks.
What do you want?
I want to punch my dad in the face.
We're gonna get along just fine.
Of course, Jezebel was speaking metaphorically, but Johnny didn't notice. Jezebel was eager to help Johnny in any way she could, and vowed to find a way to sneak him into the palace. Johnny frowned at the seemingly arbitrary amount of time required for Jezebel to find a way to sneak him in. But he accepted the fact that without traditional missions, this was the best way to further the story.
I feel like that's a joke that could rub people the wrong way, but I enjoyed it. I got a kick out of that one. So anyway, yeah, clearly Johnny...
Alright, Jezebel went back home. She's gonna let us know when she can sneak you in. In the meantime, let's... Wait, someone's...
Hey! Get your hands off me, you fucking troglodyte!
We have your friends, mortal.
I'm not friends with that guy.
They will writhe until their screams no longer please us.
Dane, remember your corporate abduction training.
Apparently he didn't, because he's not here anymore. So anyway, like I was saying, hey Johnny, you denied us another musical bit, so clearly that's why we're not playing as you. And not the fact that I'm just gonna really, in most circumstances, choose to play as the woman.
I'm no good to you dead, Kizzy, remember that?
I know.
I wasn't gonna leave you to die, dude. I'm already on it. You just got kidnapped. I know it was very fast, but like, I saved you in no time at all.
I owe you a raise.
You don't pay me.
Even better.
So anyway, this is kind of supposed to be a midpoint for this game. Which is another reason I can only assume that you were supposed to rescue everybody first and get their powers. 'Cause, now some characters are going to get kidnapped.
Good job, Sisyphus. Keep running.
You'll get out of there one day. But yeah, characters are just gonna get kidnapped.
That's probably because they have no experience in enhanced interrogation. Now, if I were doing it...
First the imps, then this. Oh, it's been a fortnight of indignity.
I know how you feel. I had to wear a poodle skirt once.
But that can't happen to people we haven't had missions with yet, so, Shakespeare will be safe in the meantime, and so will Vladimir, but yeah, for the most part, we are just here to save our friends.
Oh, lightning.
When my sister and I are free, you are... Ah! Let go of her! Kinsey! Help me, please! Viola!
I'm assuming these were all supposed to happen at once, and not just, we're going to have to rescue 3 sets of characters and then save the other 2 for later. That seems like would make more sense, but again, I wanted to do the power missions and then do the loyalty ones. I just thought it made more sense like that, you know?
Thank you, Kinsey. We're like sisters now.
Yes.
I knew you'd save me.
Who else is going to teach me how to wash my hair?
Right, so with that done, now we can get back to Shakespeare. So, Shakespeare's here in a very fancy portion of town. This is definitely the entertainment district. I'm sure you could have guessed without me saying that. This is where Shakespeare hangs out. He's an MC, and he's voiced by Liam O'Brien.
Right. William Shakespeare, humanity's greatest playwright, and hell's most diabolical purveyor of entertainment, looks on as a brave mortal on an Orphean quest enters. The bard's interest is piqued, and he looks to test his visitor's mettle.
How did that deserve a mic drop? I don't think you know how those work, Shakespeare.
The masked tragedies were used to enemies cowering as they approached, but soon they realized that they faced a foe. Courage and nobility, traits uncommon in the fires of perdition.
So anyway, you might be wondering, are there any differences in the tragedies? And the answer is no.
Fighting incident resolved. The time had come for rising action. The battle raged on below, and as bullets and blood flew, the bard arched a curious eyebrow. Could this mortal be the exact thing that Shakespeare needed?
This battle is far from over, mortal. Arise.
And now, free!
So there is an achievement for killing a certain number of tragedies, or a quest, or whatever they're called. You have to kill a certain number of them to fulfill it, that sort of thing. But yeah, they are basically just normal demons, except they appear around the entertainment district.
The conflict resolved, Shakespeare eagerly awaited meeting the champion that dispatched so many of his men. Undoubtedly, they were here for the bard's aid, and while happy endings were not a thing found in hell, Shakespeare always had a soft spot for comedies.
In the land of the living, William Shakespeare is regarded as one of the most prolific playwrights of all time. However, to the denizens of hell, the bard is seen in a far different light. After selling his soul for fame and adoration, Shakespeare served in hell as Satan's spy master general. In doing his duty, Shakespeare would punish the souls he was investigating by forcing them to perform in grotesque passion plays for Satan's amusement. But in a Twelfth Night-esque twist, Shakespeare found himself living a double life. While he projected an image of cruelty, his heart was as soft as Jezebel's. In secret, he would tutor her on the classics and act out the works of his mortal days. When Satan found out, he cast Shakespeare out of the palace, believing that the poet would be tormented by the populace of hell, far out of Jezebel's sight. But Satan had not counted on the bard's cunning. Embracing his persona of master torturer, Shakespeare and his followers, the tragedies, took root in the entertainment district, biding their time for revenge.
So Shakespeare called forth the Deus Ex Machina to bestow our protagonist with the arcane power of Force Stomp.
I wouldn't really call this a Deus Ex Machina. It's the same thing we're getting from everybody else, which is a power of some variety. In this instance, we're getting our stomp power back, and thank goodness, and oh, hi, hello. I'd call you a familiar face, but the only thing familiar about you is your headwear. Anyway though, right, so, you might be wondering, where's Shakespeare?
Enter a young maiden, loyal and true, eager to save the bard. Is she motivated by friendship? By pragmatism? Who is to say what our heroine is thinking?
Wow.
I'd also like to mention, yes, there are equivalents to the power sapping grenades from 4. The Dark Insiders are able to just hit you with kind of this, AoE attack. Kind of messes up the gravity, and it also removes your ability to use powers for a bit. Though unlike Saints Row 4, there's no way to mitigate that effect, so you just have to wait it out the same amount of time every time.
His pallor returning to his cheeks, the bard inquires how he can show his thanks to Kinsey Kensington.
I want in your spy ring.
The bard looks at his new protege, the wicked smile stretching across his lips as he thinks of the possibilities. A new tragedy is in the making. And scene!
And there he goes.
A Damned Soul's Orientation Guide, Chapter 36. The Dark Insiders. These elder demons direct the lesser denizens of hell, summoning them to die on their behalf. It is never wise to encourage.
My sister wants it.
Right, so now we can go back and learn her new power. But first, guess who it is? You're not doing a very good job at killing me, dude.
I wonder if there's anyone down here Oleg hates.
I mean, Oleg probably wouldn't have liked Dex. He never met him, but clearly we don't like Dex now. More on him later, but yes, we do need to kill him a bunch of times in order to get a particular reward, so, I would definitely recommend finding Dex and killing him anytime you have the opportunity.
Let's see what these things can do.
I didn't want to get at it too fast because I wanted to kind of save a certain category of activities until I could get to it in one particular episode, but, honestly, you do well to just kill Dex whenever you find him. Don't be like me. You probably won't hit all 7 until you actually want to.
Lights up! The mortal stands in the training grounds, eager to try out his new Force Stomp power on the group of demons in front of them.
It's Stomp. You know how it works.
Scene 2, in which our protagonist kills more demons with Force Stomp.
Not your best play.
Act 2, in which our protagonist is greeted by foul imps. In which our protagonist learns that Force Stomp even works on flying enemies, enabling them to remove a Dark Insider's shield before shooting them to death with bullets. There is also a mistaken identity and love unrequited.
Unfortunately, Stomp can't solve that.
The day is won, and the curtain closes on our noble hero.
So yeah, this is just Stomp from the previous game, except Force is like a slightly different way of referring to the initial ability, but it is more or less the same. It is just, you stomp the ground, and it's just very forceful, so things go flying. So anyway, yeah, we've got Shakespeare now. We have saved him from Dark Insiders, which means now that we've learned Stomp, we can do his loyalty mission.
Shakespeare secretly longed for overt control of the entertainment district. If only someone could act on behalf of the thoughts he kept to himself.
You're so subtle.
The bard silently made a vow. Jezebel would be free of her father, no matter the costs.
So yeah, Shakespeare in this game is interesting because he's kind of playing a character himself. But in reality, he really just wants to help Jezebel, which I also like how that ties in with the fact that Jezebel does just like bursting into song. She has had a theater upbringing, and that's not exactly how Shakespeare things go, but like, you know, she can learn from him and then go in a different direction. It happens. You know, Shakespeare was her start, but she got into musicals afterwards. The other thing I like about Shakespeare being in this game is Zinyak was a huge fan of Shakespeare, of course, made multiple references to Shakespearean plays. So, I don't know where the Zin go to hell, if they even go to hell at all. They might not have an afterlife, but if they do have a hell, I hope he's seething down there, because the Saints get to meet Shakespeare. I mean, he had a time machine, so maybe he did too, but we get to meet modern Shakespeare. Like, he had to see Shakespeare in the past. We know what happened to Shakespeare after he died. You know, he sold his soul. Supposedly. But also, he's kind of aiming for his own position of power, so... Considering it's Shakespeare, I feel like there was an angle to that, and it's not just him being necessarily selfish, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We haven't actually seen any of his audio logs yet. With that being said, though, we're mostly clear for the rest of the episode. It's mostly just loyalty stuff at this point, so, yeah, while we montage through all this, I guess topic of the day is just the narrative implications of Saints Row 4 leading into this game, because I think that's pretty neat. I really like this game. I already called Saints Row 4 a victory lap and a last hurrah for the series, and I stand by that. I feel like it is the strongest finale for Saints Row. But this definitely felt like it was supposed to be an in-between into a Saints Row 5, you know, not a reboot necessarily, but, you know, another game with this universe and these characters, and while I did enjoy my time with this, it is also a little sad that we never got to do that. I don't know how the writing is for the reboot, but it did feel like they were really doing a great job with the characters in this game. Like, obviously they were working with a smaller set of them. This is mostly the Johnny Gat and Kinsey show. But, I don't know, I just feel like the whole game was really sharp. And it's such a shame that, like, Saints Row 4 was good. I definitely enjoyed the writing of that game. I enjoyed my entire experience with it, but, you know, this game felt like it was stepping up into something that could have been even better than Saints Row 4. But at the same time, I also can't say I'm surprised that they rebooted it, because honestly, when Saints Row 4 released, I'm not a person who exactly goes around looking for opinions on the internet. I don't forum dwell a lot, because if I have to experience a lot of other people, I just go, what are you talking about? Why are you like this? At some point, eventually. But, you know, at the time, I do recall, you know, seeing some public opinion about Saints Row 4, and even amongst people who did like Saints Row 4, which was a lot of people at the time, I don't believe any of those clickbait videos that are like, was Saints Row 4 ever good? No, it was pretty popular, and you could argue that maybe it was just people hopping on a bandwagon because it's a silly-looking game, but, like, did pretty well. People enjoyed it. But, yeah, even at the time, a lot of people were like, where does Saints Row go from here? Because the thing is, escalation is a difficult concept. And it's definitely one that I think Saints Row as a series ran into problems with. Because I mean, I think the question was valid. Where does Saints Row go after you've had a game about aliens and being the president of the United States, fighting aliens and getting superpowers in a simulation? You know, there are multiple ways that you can kind of ratchet things back, you know, kind of reset, and the start of a new thing will always do that to a certain extent, just by the nature of you have to start with exposition again. But, you know, that can only do so much when you're working with kind of the same world and the same characters. And yeah, without a reboot, we've just had the boss for all of these games except for the spin-off that never actually released for real. And so, yeah, eventually you just have to start asking, like, where can we go with these characters that we haven't? Because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of characters kind of got a serviceable ending. Shaundi especially, if I'm being entirely honest, like, she had a whole emotional roller coaster from 2 to 4, but it did end with not only her making amends with her past self and kind of learning to be free again and letting go of her trauma, but also she got to meet the person she was so hung up on the death of, and he got to survive, and she actually got closure on that. But as for the boss, yeah, she's kind of done everything at this point. She's been at the bottom, she's been the boss who starts at the bottom but then has to work her way up, she's gone to a new place, she's fought aliens. There's not a lot you could necessarily do anymore at that point. I think in order to kind of scale back your escalation enough, you do need to just go to a different place in a different time, get some different characters. It doesn't have to be, like, completely removed. I'd say one of the best to do it in terms of escalation is definitely JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where every series is just a new character, and they manage to wind down what happened before, in order to kind of reframe into, you know, the new storyline. And I think a great example of that is going from Stardust Crusaders, which ended on an extremely anime fight where, inexplicably, the main character and the villain were kind of just floating around, even though that's not really supposed to be a thing they're doing. Look, they were just jumping up really high and falling down really slow, it's fine. But, like, Araki was actually able to scale back a little bit for Part 4 and introduce one town as a setting, which was unusual for JoJo, but also just say, hey, we're not doing the globetrotting thing now, we're just going to do a small town mystery, and it worked so well. And you know, it even included the main character from the previous season as well. He was there, he was just, you know, in the background doing his own work, so he couldn't just solve every problem the main characters had. You know, I think that was a great thing to do. And as another example, I just started watching Zeta Gundam again after finishing Gundam, and yeah, you know, after a whole storyline with Amuro, I feel like they were able to set a new tone with this new character. And Camille definitely feels way different. And yeah, they were able to successfully re-establish the story in a different place. You know, the previous war had ended, but now this is kind of issues that can arise in reconstruction where one side is just steamrolling the other, and even though, you know, Zeon was evil, the lengths certain groups go to punish them after the war are way too far. And so, like, you still have some of the heightened tone from the end of the original Gundam, but they are able to scale it back a little bit to start the story with different stakes. So yeah, this has mostly just been me having an excuse to talk about other things, but I do think that we can circle back to Saints Row and say, because we did keep focusing on the boss and her adventures, yeah, we were just taken to a point where there wasn't really anything left for us to explore. Narrative-wise, we'd pretty much solved everything. Again, characters developed as they, in a satisfying way, and I feel like if they had too many more games with the boss, then it'd really kind of lose interest in this set of characters, and I don't know, I would rather they stop while they're ahead than make me feel bitter about Shondi or Pierce or the boss or any of them. The only other thing I can think of them doing is, like, going back to the plan from the normal ending of Saints Row 4, where apparently we wanted to colonize a new planet, which has some tough concepts that I don't think Saints Row at this point was really equipped to handle. Maybe they could have changed tone a lot, but look, I just don't know if I would have wanted us to have to fight native species on a different planet. Keith David and Pierce already kind of had this conversation. It would be a bit of a bummer. And the only other thing I can think of doing is just ripping off Xenoblade Chronicles X and saying, okay, the natives of this planet are actually cool with you living on this planet. It's just that there's this alien gang you have to take care of. Oh, you've done that before? Cool, there's like 3 sections of them. Can you help us fight them? And then we'd say yes. That's, I think, the only way we could get through that without it being, bad. Very, very bad. Again, I love this series to death, but sometimes you just have to look at the tone you've set for the series and think, there are certainly some things that you certainly cannot tackle with this tone. Again, to kind of talk about other things that I know about, want to talk about a little, having recently watched Pocahontas, not as bad as a movie as I would have assumed. Savages was not a good song. It was also not a concept that you could really turn into a Disney song in the first place. So, yeah, all in all, certainly the low point of that one. It was just kind of a bad idea all around. They probably shouldn't have just done that. You really can't boil racism and the tension between the natives and the colonizers down to a catchy Disney tune, even if it's the catchy Disney villain tune, even if it's, you know, mostly from the antagonist's point of view. Maybe don't. Yeah, maybe that was simply not an avenue you should have gone down in the first place. Anyway, we're at the end of Shakespeare's whole thing.
Shakespeare's tragedies moved throughout the entertainment district, eagerly awaiting their master's next command. The bard had written about love enough times to recognize attraction when he saw it. Dane was smitten by a certain lady, even if the young executive did not know it.
No, I'm pretty sure he does know that. We've seen a bunch of mentions of Dane and his involvement with the sisters. I want to say it was Kiki. I think he has a crush on Kiki. Admittedly, while I know we've seen the subplot, I don't think about it that much, and I'm not particularly interested. In fairness, it's not really something they emphasize that much either, so it's just a little thing that they wrote in, and you can take it or leave it. And I leave it. Oh yeah, we also get the More Time upgrade, which gives you more time for missions, which is incredibly useful in a game that I already find to be mostly pretty easy, especially when you get the other upgrades. More time for each mission kind of just breaks the game in half, especially for the missions based on time. Like Hellblazing, if you get the more time upgrades, you'll probably never have issues with those ever again. And again, I think if you just get flight upgrades, they already get really easy. Anyway, we're speaking of Dane again, but before we end off the episode, here's another audio log from him.
I'd be a liar if I didn't say I got a little pissed when the would-be president shot me in the face. But after a couple years of reflection, I realized something. They had the same look in their eyes that I have. They were driven. And when I realized that, I knew I wanted to prepare for the moment they would come down to hell, because on that day, I wanted to be standing with the Saints.
I love how he's definitely a little bitter about being shot, but The last thing he said did actually wind up being a little true. He does want to be the Saints' #1 fan or whatever. I mostly remember the part where he got shot and fell out of a building, if I'm being entirely honest. Either way, that'll do it for this episode of Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. See you next time for the last power and the start of cleanup.
In the afterlife, you could be headed for the serious strife. Now you make the scene all day, but tomorrow there'll be hell to pay. In the afterlife, you could be headed for the serious strife. Now you make the scene all day, but tomorrow there'll be hell to pay. The people listen attentively, I mean about future calamity. I used to think the idea was obsolete until I heard the old man say